Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is KidLee, and it is time to talk about the Batman versus the Superman movie. The first half of this video is going to be completely spoiler-free, and then the second half will get into all of the super details on the movie, and I'll let you know when I make that transition, so for those of you who don't want any spoilers, you'll be able to exit at that time. So, just to go ahead and kick things off, I guess I'll start out by saying that I did indeed like the movie. Now, was it perfect by any means? No, sir, ma'am, it was not. There are issues. Now, I should say, or I should clarify, perhaps, and say that I am not the biggest DC expert in the world. I've always considered myself to be more of a Marvel Comics person, so some of my lore is a little bit rusty on the DC side. And I'll say that since this movie has come out here in the last 24 hours, because I actually saw it Thursday night, so here in about the last 24 hours, I've been doing a bunch of research, trying to get myself caught up and see if certain complaints were valid or not, and which comics were doing this and that, and all kinds of crazy things. But anyway, so getting into this, the first thing I want to talk about is actually the characters, because we have new people in some of the new roles. And one of the big things going in was Ben Affleck as Batman. Is that really gonna work? Is that a thing? You know, what's gonna happen here? What is this craziness, right? And I think most people agree that Ben Affleck did a great job as Batman. And in fact, he was one of the stronger characters, one of the stronger roles in this entire movie, which is really cool. And he's playing a different kind of Batman. And I got to be very careful with what I'm saying here and my wording and stuff, because like I said, I don't want to actually spoil any things here. But he's playing a different kind of Batman, which is refreshing in many respects. But just overall, he did a really good job with the role. We have got Gail Ganta, if I'm saying her name right, as Wonder Woman. She actually had more in the movie than what I thought she was going to have. You know, I thought pretty much what we saw in the trailers was all we were going to get out of her. And she actually had more in the movie than what I thought. Now, for her, and some of this goes for Ben Affleck as well, but I think for her as Wonder Woman, she wasn't in the movie enough for us to really get a good feel for her and that character. They're actually filming the Wonder Woman movie, and I think that is going to be the movie that really tells if she's able to play this role or not. And if I back up to Ben Affleck as Batman, even though I praised what he did, again, the next movie that he's in with Batman will help build what he's doing, and then again give us a better idea on whether or not he is right or wrong for that role. But what he did so far was pretty good. I thought it was great. We've got Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, or Lex Luthor's son, I should say. This is a major issue in the film. You could even kind of tell it from the trailers a little bit, but yeah, major issue. It was a total miscast. He did not nail the role, and you've got to throw the writing into that as well. You know, whose issue is that really? But overall, I think it's a missed opportunity, and they probably should have gotten somebody older, because that's generally what we want for Lex Luthor, or even perhaps Lex Luthor's son, if they wanted to go that route. Yeah, he just didn't fit that role very well. And then the fourth one that I actually want to talk about a little bit is Jeremy Irons as Alfred. And this is one that I was concerned about, because Michael Caine was the last Alfred, and he nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And Jeremy Irons, you know, he does a lot of like Dungeons and Dragons, and he's like the bad guy in Die Hard, and it's like, this guy's gonna be our Alfred. Alfred is supposed to be like the nice guy and all this and that, and he just, you know, going in, he didn't really seem to be like that kind of a guy, but he did a pretty good job. There's some questionable things going on with that character, which I can't talk about, but overall, I think he did okay, but not great. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the movie sort of overall. You know, the visual effects, the camera work, the sound effects, all of that, the combat and all of that in the film is absolutely fantastic. They nailed what they were trying to do with all those categories, and they got it right. Where they messed up was the overall story. And it's no secret that DC is trying to catch up with Marvel at this point. And what they tried to do in this film is they tried to cram so much into this film that it kind of ruined it a little bit. Because they're sitting there, they're like, okay, we've got all these big superheroes, we've got to get them in, we've got to try and cover as many points or plot points that we need to bring in the bad guy, and then, blah, 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 blah. And they tried to do it, and it didn't. It kind of worked for them, but not really. With them trying to cram in as much as they did, there was just so many open plot holes and storylines they kind of started and didn't finish, or there was parts of it that were very, very messy, and then there were parts of it that were very, very good. There was a portion of the opening sequence which is very, very good. There's parts in the middle that were very, very good, and there were certain scenes that they nailed, certain scenes that they didn't nail. So it was definitely a little crazy in parts. I'm sitting here looking over my notes, trying to figure out what else can I say without spoiling it, and I don't know if there's too much more than that I can say. But just sort of a recap on that. Like I said, I thought it was good, but it's got a lot of those issues, and most of that has to do with them trying to cram too much into the film, and they're not able to finish some of the things that they were trying to do. Jesse Eisenberg as Luther, no, that didn't work. And another one of the big things was Doomsday as the bad guy. Again, if you've seen any of the trailers, you know it's going to happen. But Doomsday as the bad guy, should they have done it now? Should they have waited? Yeah, they probably should have waited. They probably could have brought in somebody else to bring the team together and then have Doomsday come in, in the next movie or the following movie or whatever. But yeah, it's a little crazy that they decided to go with Doomsday on film number one when, again, they're trying to cram in all this stuff, and it's only kind of like not or partially working for them. The last 2 points that I'll bring up on the spoiler free is the opening sequence for the movie is something that we've all seen 1,000 times. So that was a little disappointing. And then there is a scene near the end of the movie where something happens, and you kind of do this. You go, huh, okay, well, that's a thing. And then after that, there's a good 10-minute segment that happens, and you're just, in the back of your mind, you're like, this is the whole thing is just BS. Why are you dragging this out? This whole thing is just BS. You're like, okay, it's nice, I guess. It's just BS. Why are we watching? Why are we seeing this? But okay, I understand you're trying to invoke emotions and all that, but yeah. So my overall rating, the spoiler-free version, my overall rating for the film is going to be a 6 out of 10. So just very slightly above average. I considered giving it a 7, but with all of the issues that it does have, I couldn't justify a 7, so I had to go with a 6 out of 10. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, let's flash here. Spoiler alerts incoming. If you don't want to know anything about the film, leave now. Leave now. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Okay, here we go. Full spoilers. So they started out the film with the scene that we've seen a million times. Oh, Batman parents get killed. Oh, I fall down the well again. How many times do they have to keep remaking this scene? Oh, they didn't need to bloody show us this again. I mean, come on. Holy cow. I mean, there was a scene later in the film where, and I forget exactly what was going on, but Batman's having these flashbacks, and it's the flashbacks to his parents getting killed. I think there, that is okay. But showing it in like the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie, again, is not necessary. We've already seen it a million times, okay? Okay. Now, the scene that they did directly after that, which is actually, you could almost call it a prequel scene a little bit, where Bruce Wayne is driving around Metropolis while Zod and Superman are fighting. That scene was awesome. And there was the big question of, well, where exactly is Batman when all this craziness is going on in the Man of Steel movie? And so this actually explains that, which is a really cool idea. So Bruce is like hot rodding around and trying to save people a little bit, and that was a really cool scene. So I give him props for that. A few key points that I wanted to go ahead and talk about now that we're out of the spoiler free section is I want to talk about Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor again. Now, whether he's Luthor's son, it doesn't really matter. When you talk about Lex Luthor, you're generally talking about an older guy. You know, he's the crime boss, the crime lord. He's a tech guy. He's really smart. He's the evil genius. He's a straight talker. He knows what he's doing. He always has a backup plan. And then what did we get out of this Lex Luthor? We got some kid running around, and he acted more like the Joker than anything else. And there's the scene on the platform with the helicopter, and he's like pulling out this little clock thing and stuff. And I'm just sitting here thinking the whole time, I'm like, this is Joker. You just paint up Jesse Eisenberg, put him in a Joker outfit, and you know what? I think this would have worked out way, way better. So, the character was it was not written correctly. It was not casted correctly. I don't know what they were trying to do with that character, but it was kind of a disaster. One other point on Jeremy Irons is Alfred. Now, as I understand it, the lore for Alfred throughout the comics and all that is that Alfred was like a field surgeon, a battlefield medic. He's one of Bruce Wayne's like moral compasses. Bruce Wayne comes home, he's all bloodied up and beat up every night, and Alfred always takes care of him and he heals him. He's the butler and all this and that. So, when did Alfred become Tony Stark? That's my question. So now all of a sudden Alfred is the brilliant engineer, and he's making all the gizmos and gadgets. Here's a new Batmobile. Here's the voice modulator. Oh, you need a full armor suit to fight Superman? I got that covered. Pretty sure we can handle that. So that is the one part of Alfred that I didn't like. As far as I know in the lore, that's not a thing. He's brilliant engineer now. So it's kind of like, okay, if you say so. So yeah, I didn't really like that. That was kind of weird. Next, and this has been a really, really hot topic regarding Batman and this new version of Batman. This is the darker, older version of Batman, and in this movie, he straight up kills people. That's right, he kills people straight up. Now, I've heard some number counts. I've heard that people were keeping track, and there's somewhere around 14 people that he killed in this movie. Now, I've heard some really interesting theories on what's going on with this Batman. And again, since it's an older, darker Batman, apparently there are a couple of actual comic book stories that they could actually be using for the Ben Affleck Batman, where we know that Robin either gets killed or something happens to Robin and or Nightwing, and that's why there's the suit that has like the Joker writing on it. So we know something happens there, and there's even a line in the movie where he says something like, I forget the exact line, but something about how many people actually stayed good or something like that. And so in the comic books, the storyline that they have is, I think one is something like Robin gets killed, and then there's another one where Robin and Batgirl both get killed, and Batman actually loses his moral compass or his code, and he basically goes on a killing streak. And I think he kills Joker or some of the bad guys, but he basically goes on a killing streak. So the Ben Affleck Batman that we're seeing might be the Batman who's already lost his moral code. And one of the potential rumors that's circulating around is that when he joins up with Batman and Wonder Woman and that crew to create the Justice League, he's actually going to be getting his moral compass back, and that is going to be potentially a different Batman moving forward. So we'll have to see where that goes. But like I said earlier, I liked what Ben Affleck did with Batman. It's going to be really interesting to see the Batman movies or the Justice League movies going forward and see what they end up doing with that character. The next thing I want to touch on, and this is maybe one of the biggest things, one of the biggest things that people are hating on this film, is the fact that Superman does indeed get killed by Doomsday. That's right, death of Superman already. Now, for those who might be completely unfamiliar, there are stories, there are comics about the death of Superman and different variations. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about them just trying to cram too much into this film. So the fact that they're trying to cram the death of Superman story into this film and then they're going to extend it going forward is just crazy. Why did they have to pull that so early? Why are they're going nuts with this? They tried to squeeze so much into this film that it's insane. It is insane. And that is one of the downfalls of this movie. It's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So as I was referring to a little earlier, so there's the death of Superman scene, and then there's a good 7 to 10 minute multiple memorial scenes. And that's what I was talking about when I was saying, okay, so Superman just died. Now you're going to show us all these memorial scenes when we know he's going to come back. I just think they dragged it out, or they drug it out too long. I understand what they're trying to do, but it was just a little bit too long. But yeah. But there's, as again, like I sort of said earlier, there's a lot of stories or plot holes that they were trying to do and that weren't able to finish because the movie was 2.5 hours. There actually is another version coming out when they release it on Blu-ray. There's going to be a rated R version, and I'm not actually sure if that's an extended version as well, or if it's just a rated R version with some additional scenes. So it's possible that this rated R version that's coming out might actually help fill in some of this stuff, and that actually might be a better movie when it does get released. But I'm just trying to think here real quick. Was there anything else I wanted to touch on? If you have not seen the film, and if you're not going to see the film, if you actually want to know how the whole fight thing even happened, who won in the two fights, most people consider that there were two fights in the film. Superman won the first one, and Batman actually won the second one, so it's tied up. In the second fight, Batman used kryptonite, as I'm sure you can imagine, used a kryptonite bombs on... It was actually more of a kryptonite gas grenade on Superman twice, and he actually built a staff that had a crystal at the end of it, a kryptonite crystal, if you want to call it that. And he had Superman down. He was stepping on his throat with his giant metal boot, and he was getting ready to plunge him when Lois Lane came in and stopped him. That was actually a really, really cool scene, because Superman was basically on his last dying breath as Batman goes in for the plunge, and he says, "Martha, save Martha." And then Batman's like, "What did you say? What did you say? Why did you say that, Martha?" Because Batman's mother's name is Martha, and Superman's mother's name is Martha. And so he's like, and that's when Lois comes in, and she's like, that's his mother. He's like, "He has a mother? But that's my mother's name." And that's where they made their connection, and that was a pretty cool scene. But overall, just sort of wrapping this up, because I don't want to ramble on too much longer. Like I said, I thought it was a great film. Lots of stuff that they had issues with. It definitely does not deserve the 30% or whatever it's getting on Rotten Tomatoes right now. It should be in the 60, 70 range, maybe even the 50 range. But yeah, the negative reviews that it's getting from like the official people, it's not justified. Now I can see it from the comic book experts. They're gonna rip it apart even more than I have or other people have. So I can see where they're giving it a that bad of a score. But for everybody else, it's just a very good average movie, very good average superhero movie. But I think that will go ahead and do it, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. Thank you all so much for watching. And with that being said, everybody keep playing it and have fun.